Hello everybody, and today we are going to be checking out a scenario where the prime Dutch Empire returns to modern day WICSO. Now if you don't know what the Dutch Empire is, it was a very strong fascist nation that existed between World War III and World War IV, and we have just plopped it in the modern day. If you guys do enjoy today's scenario, then please consider liking and subscribing. And yes, I know, I did get a haircut. It's not my favorite, but hair grows back. Alright, and on that note, let's get straight into the scenario. So first of all, there is this little thing called ideology, and I did make an ideology map. It's just with the Dutch Empire returning in the modern day, it is a flawed democracy, but in this scenario, it would be a fascist nation. So just keep that in mind, because I don't really want to update the ideology map. But there are a lot of implications once the Dutch Empire returns. Specifically, this little country right here is going to be absolutely demolished. It is very small, and the Dutch Empire is just going to kind of roll in its troops and annex the entire thing. So with the Dutch Empire's first expansions, we can start to see their aggressive intents to try and take over the entirety of Europe. Now, there are these things, and they are military alliances and the Assembly of Nations. Yeah, no, we're not going to have those exist. This is to both benefit the Dutch Empire in this scenario and also to make the video a little bit more entertaining. But next on the Dutch Empire's list is going to be this dark red country. If you didn't know, right before World War II, this little country was a part of the Dutch Empire, and now they're going to be absolutely gangbanged. Or no, actually wong banged. They're just going to be banged by the Dutch Empire. Really got to watch my language. But the Dutch Empire is going to absolutely demolish this very small European nation, capturing their capital, and now finally getting Mediterranean Sea coast. And after they're fully occupied, they are going to be fully annexed and their capital absolutely demolished. And now the Dutch Empire is back on the rise, which is going to scare a lot of countries. Now, there are some countries like Poland and the Farmers Union who did face off against the Dutch Empire in World War IV and are now a lot weaker. There is also Ireland, who has been weakened by the losing of England. But instead of going after all those strong nations, we're going to see the Dutch Empire go after Germany. Or at least what remains of it. This is kind of just the Dutch Empire getting rid of all of the scraps that remain with their resurgence. And this also just helps them get Adriatic Sea coast. And bada boom bada bing, Germany is gone. And this is really scary because the Dutch Empire is a big nation. They encompass a lot of Europe. And this is going to scare a lot of countries, and they are going to find refuge with each other. And of course by that, I mean the Italian Union is going to be returning. Come on, this is a no-brainer. But with the Italian Union returning, they're going to be able to fend off the Dutch Empire's aggressive intents, at least in the Italian peninsula. Because now they're just going to be going over here to Denmark, and yeah. Oh, we have Norway as well. Wow. So Norway and the fascist Dutch Empire are working together to take out Denmark, and they have done just that. And in this peace treaty, yeah, the capital is gone because the country is gone. We are just going to see Norway annexing these islands, and the Dutch Empire is going to take the rest of the peninsula. And after all is said and done, the Dutch Empire now looks like this, a lot more familiar to post-World War II. Sorry, pre-World War II. But the Dutch Empire is pretty boxed in. They can't really go west, they can't really go east because of Ireland, France, and Poland. But they could go after Bosnia. Now, Bosnia, I never really liked this country. It kind of just felt like a placeholder for Rome. RIP, by the way. But yeah, this is not personal, it is just business. Because the Dutch Empire is just going to absolutely demolish them. They're going to be heading down the coast, and eventually they're going to threaten the capital. And once you threaten the capital, you can easily bend their arm into surrendering. But the Dutch Empire wants full annexation, so they're not going to allow a peace treaty to occur, so they can just take the whole thing. And once that happens, they have enough war score to go ahead and just annex the entire thing. But this is where I would imagine the Dutch Empire is going to stop fully annexing countries, because there is going to be a kind of commonality between all these countries that they don't want the Dutch Empire to expand. Those countries, those like ideals being shared between Greece, Farmers Union, Northern Italy, France, Ireland, and Poland. Now, they're not going to form a coalition because maybe then the brown team could ally with someone maybe of similar ideology. But no, actually, they're not. Iceland. You might want to watch out. Oh, no. Iceland, you done messed up. Now, how did they mess up? I'm not quite sure. They just existed. But I guess that's enough to get you in prison. Or at least sentenced to death with the invasion of the Dutch. With the East falling, we are going to see a massive push to take the West and the capital, which goes successfully. And eventually, Iceland is going to surrender. And we are going to see the full annexation of Iceland. Now, Iceland is a historic territory of the Dutch Empire, So I don't know how countries would react to this. You know, like, is the Dutch Empire trying to reestablish itself as a European, like, colonial power? Anyways, the Dutch Empire is now just going to be going back for another Balkan nation. But I think I've said this like 3 times now, but I really mean it this time. I think this is the last country they can fully annex. And with the invasion going swimmingly, full annexation has happened. And now the Dutch Empire is cooked, because there is going to be a collection of countries that's not going to enjoy the Dutch Empire's expansion. Those countries, of course, are going to be Ireland, Poland, the Farmers Union, Northern Italy, and that's it. So these countries have now banded together in a coalition to try and stop the Dutch Empire's expansion. Of course, with the implications with a coalition, you are going to be an attack one, attack all. So for example, if the Dutch Empire were to just try and invade Poland, then that means that they'd be at war with the Farmers Union, Northern Italy, and Ireland as well, along with Poland. So they are not going to be doing that. Instead, they are going to strike up an economic deal. This is going to be an offering to the Catalonian country. Basically, the Dutch Empire is going to buy these islands, and in return, you're going to get a lot of money and Dutch protection. The Catalonians are a bit hesitant because these islands are very symbolic to them. They're like a kind of like a sign of their survival, but money is money and safety is also safety. So once the Dutch Empire buys them, they are going to form a non-aggression pact, and that basically ensures the Catalonian safety. Now, there are not many places for the Dutch Empire to go, so when you can't really get any land, you can obviously kind of fund your proxies. And they're going to make the Green Terrorists their proxies. They are going to fund the Green Terrorists' endeavors over here in Libya. Now, with new arriving Dutch funding, we are going to see the terrorists are able to strike a lot of major victories. They're even able to spearhead up and capture a major city, and this gives way for another one to fall, and even another one. And with this, we are going to see more pockets arise in support of the terrorist annexation, with a pocket arising right here, and 2 pockets. We have a very small one between a major city and the capital, and a big one south of the capital. And now the terrorist organization is going to have no trouble linking up with these areas that are pledging their allegiance. And now you might be wondering, what does the Dutch Empire have to gain out of this? It's not like they're going to take any land in Libya, but after weeks of fighting with the new pockets opening up, and the Mediterranean country's final major city being captured, they have no choice but to surrender over. And in this treaty between the Mediterranean and the terrorists, yeah. Okay, so the terrorists have fully annexed the Mediterraneans, and the Dutch Empire, I actually lied. They are going to be getting one thing out of this, and that is this little island. But that is mainly just for regional influence. And yeah, now the terrorists are aligned with the Dutch Empire. And they're easily able to get funding because these guys are pretty neutral with the Dutch Empire, and they are going to go ahead and let the Dutch Empire supply and trade with them. Now, you might be wondering, what is the Eastern Rebellion doing about this? Well, they're not going to be doing anything, because they know the Dutch Empire would most definitely pummel them if they were to try and interfere with their proxy in Libya, so they are going to stay out of the Dutch Empire's antics. But something is going to be happening in France. A rebellion is going to be happening in France. If you look at the ideology map, they are a flawed democracy, and this might be the Dutch's, attempt to try and revert them back to fascism. This country, of course, I am referring to fascist France. After reunification in World War IV, they got along pretty well with their communist southern counterparts, but they're now being funded and a new front opens. Of course, Green France is going to be able to push some of the rebels back, but some of the pockets are so overwhelming because they are on the border of the Dutch Empire. And eventually, France has really no option but to surrender over to the rebellion, and they're going to be forced to change their government. And this is what we see the peace treaty looking like. It does not look like much changed, but a lot has changed. It's just on the outside, you can't see it. Because now we are going to see the Dutch Empire establishing their own alliance, and this is going to be the Lightning Bolt Alliance. This will, of course, include them, France, and finally, Libya. Now, why did I choose a Lightning Bolt? No idea. But I like it, so you know what? We're keeping it. The Lightning Bolt Alliance has now been established with the Dutch Empire, France, and Libya. Sorry if my English does not sound very good. I'm very tired right now. But we're going to be seeing an incident that is going to change the tide of this video. And it is going to be Russian invasion of Poland. Now, of course, this coalition was made to deter the Dutch Empire, but it is still an attack one, attack all alliance, so it is still going to be forced to declare war on Russia. Russia, of course, had this logistically planned out, as now they are going to be invading parts of the Farmers Union and sending more troops into Poland. the Dutch Empire sees an opportunity. The leaders of Libya and France are going to meet in Amsterdam, and they are going to have a little chat. After the chat, they are going to go back to their respective countries, and the Lightning Bolt Alliance is going to declare war on the coalition. And this is also going to prompt Russia to join the Lightning Bolt Alliance. And now we can let the war commence between the 4-Point Star Alliance and the Lightning Bolt Alliance. The first active front line we're going to see is Dutch incursions into Poland. If you remember, the Polish Civil War included Russian supportists and fascist supportists. I'm sure that kind of radicalized population has definitely gone down, but there could be some people that are still like, yeah, we want to be a part of the Dutch Empire. We're also going to see very small Dutch incursions into Italy, but they are quite limited because their capitals are right up here by the Dutch border. But somewhere we see the coalition actually having a good amount of success is over here in England. They make a landing here in southwest Cornwall, and they're going to be able to make a solidary front line here on the front line here in England. Now, this is a pretty big war. It is, it spans in 2 continents, Africa and Europe, but I would not classify it as a world war. Maybe it's more of a Napoleonic situation. But with a new front line opening and the southwest of the Dutch Empire now being heavily fortified, the Italian Union is going to be able to push out the northeastern incursion and even be able to make very small land invasions to try and give a little bit of breathing room for their capitals. This goes successfully, and they're even able to start to bombard the Dutch coast, which goes successfully as they are able to deter a lot of naval invasions that the Dutch Empire could have had. Green France is not going to have their colors shown, like they're not going to be like, oh, they make a landing in Corsica. No, they are going to be mainly using their military, and that is going to be used on the front line here in northern Italy. Some envoys might be sent over here to England, but just so you know, Green France, they are doing stuff. It is just not going to be able to be visually represented. Eventually, Russia is going to broaden out their front line here in Poland, and that is going to go so successfully to the point where they're able to meet up with the Dutch Empire, who at this point they are friendly with. And once they're able to cut Poland into 2 pieces, the Dutch Empire is able to make an official front line here against the Farmers' Union. Now, the south of Poland, in fear of having it, ransacked by fascists and dictatorships, the Farmers' Union is going to send in their occupying forces to occupy southern Poland. But of course, they will be still fighting up against the Dutch and the Russians. And the Russians are still making very good incursions into Poland, and they're even now able to connect up with their front line in the Farmers' Union. Sorry, my English. But Cornwall is going to be able to fall into Irish hands, but a pretty impressive Dutch counteroffensive is going to be orchestrated in the north, and even small incursions to try and deter the Irish away from southern England, and that is And that is going to work with the annihilation of the Western Front Line, and a very small front line being established into Wales. And after all of this, it looks like the Dutch Empire, the tides have turned for them, as they are now gaining an impressive amount of territory in northern Italy, and even pushing out a good amount of their forces. I bet you thought I was going to introduce a plot point. No, there's not really much the coalition can do about this. The Dutch Empire combined with the Russians are just insanely strong. And eventually the Farmers' Union is going to have just so many sides that they have to deal with. They're going to be forced to abandon the front line over here in the north. But that was kind of stupid because that just kind of gave way for the Dutch and the Russians to invade further. It is just now they're able to use more of their military to protect their capital. Poland is going to finally capitulate over to the Dutch, at least their western half is going to, while the east is going to fall over to Russian forces, and Poland has officially died. And northern Italy, it is not looking very good for them. Their incursions have been completely annihilated, and one of their capitals has even been captured. But this was more of an economic capital. Their legislative capital is located actually down here, and before that's captured, they are just going to go ahead and exit the 4-Point Star Alliance. And so is Poland because, well, they don't exist. And yeah, it's not looking good for you, Farmers' Union. It's like really not. Why are you still fighting? It just doesn't make sense. Okay, so now the Dutch are going to force the Farmers' Union into surrendering / signing a ceasefire. And now it's Lightning Bolt versus Ireland. And let's just say that fight would not go as you expected it to, as Wales is going to be completely captured. With this, the Irish military is going to be retracted out of Cornwall, and their forces are going to be primarily orchestrating their battles and front lines over here in the north, with them trying to recapture Wales. They're going to make a port landing right here, and they're going to be able to fully push out Dutch incursions. And at this point, their population is pretty sick of war, so they're going to go ahead and leave the coalition as well. And oh my god, would you look at that. The Lightning Bolt Alliance has emerged victorious. And now we can take a look at a peace treaty between the coalition and the Lightning Bolt Alliance. Alright, so the first part of the treaty establishes the dissolvement of the coalition, and the second article of the coalition is going to establish land gain and land loss, so now we can take a look at that. Alright, and this is what the second article of the treaty is going to establish. So let's start over here in the west. Ireland is going to lose Wales and the Isle of Man. The Italian Union is going to lose their northwestern quadrant. The Farmers Union is going to lose their northwestern quadrant. And Poland has lost their northwestern quadrant. Russia gains these territories. And yeah, that's it. If you guys did enjoy today's scenario, then please consider liking and subscribing. Remember, we are on that road to try and hit 100 subscribers by the end of 2025. And I will see you guys in tomorrow's video.